It's really important that you notice when your ego is rebuilding itself. Your ego is a giant destructive beast that wants you dead. It wants you miserable. It wants you making all the worst decisions. It wants you thinking you're a worthless piece of shit. It wants you feeling like you're fat. It wants you separated from all your friends, separated from your ideals, from your faith. That's how you know you're trapped inside the bullshit. Is you're either thinking you're better than everyone and you're amazing, you're untouchable, look how what I've done, or you're like, wow, I'm such a loser. I'm living in my mom's
Mm.
basement. I've never really blah, 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 right? So it's kind of like it's gonna fucking beat you up or it's gonna rise you down. You wanna be neutral. You wanna be in a place of like, I'm not listening to you. I'm here with a very clear aim.
Welcome to Faust, everybody. I am Faust Chicho, and today I am delighted and honored to be joined by Biet Simkin. Let me tell you about this incredible woman and what she's been up to. She's a world-renowned spiritual teacher, breathwork, and meditation practitioner. She's been dubbed the David Bowie of meditation. Okay, she's the best-selling author of a great book, which I am about halfway through right now, called "Don't Just Sit There: 44 Insights to Get Your Meditation Practice Off the Cushion and Into the Real World," which some of you who have been following me on Instagram and listening to me talk at length, and you know I've been recommending this book anyway. Biet's overcome some unbelievable personal tragedy to become a spiritual sensation, leading guided by Biet meditation events all over the world that she actually scores with her own music. We're going to try to get into some of her background and her past, which is a roller coaster ride. She's been featured in Vogue, Forbes, ELLE, and Time magazine. She's a resident meditation guru at the Sundance Film Festival, One Hotels, MoMA, SoulCycle, and many other places. I had the privilege of doing some of her breathwork this past summer at Russell Brand's Community Festival, and it was extraordinary. So buckle up. This has been a long time coming. Biet, thank you so much for beaming in.
Faust, thank you for having me.
Um, I'm so glad we finally were able to connect.
Yeah.
And you know, where to begin with you. So everyone's spiritual journey is obviously very different. And you're very open about the tragedies that befell you from a young age. And I'm wondering if, without wading too far into it with our time constraints, would you be able to give people a bit of background about your childhood and about your father's unexpected initiation into mysticism in the woods of Russia? Because this is a phenomenal story.
I have had a very tragic life, and people talk about why there's a lot of tragedies in our news every single day. Today, especially, we're dealing with a lot of really bad news for the last week of war, and it may not be on our soil, but it's affecting everybody. And like I feel like I've endured so many tragedies that are like unthinkable, and many people have said to me, if they went through that, they would not survive or they would kill themselves. And what do you think they say? What do you think of someone who kills themselves after they go through something like what you went through? And I'm like, well, they're just gonna come back and fucking do it all over again.
Exactly.
I'm like, you want to kill yourself, go for it, because there's no sin. That's not a sin, but it's very sad because you're just gonna come back and like I don't know. That's my faith, and of course
Yeah.
I can't verify that. My book is all about verifications. But just to be brief, I lost my mother. She was 39 years old. She died very suddenly of cancer, not the kind of cancer that like drags you out and tortures you, but like a cancer that just fucking kills you immediately. And I grew up in poverty. There was like thousands of roaches in my kitchen. And even though we had no money, we were immigrants from Russia. We had this awakened shaman, which was my father. And being raised by an awakened shaman, while it may sound really fucking cool, it is really cool. And I feel very grateful to have been bestowed upon Yoda levels of Jedi wisdom from the age of like 3. It didn't solve the like how to be an adult, like how to pay your rent. Because Yoda, if your father is literally Yoda, he's not like, you should really invest in stock options. Like Yoda doesn't give a fuck about that stuff. Yoda is on another planet, and so that's who I was raised by. And then as I got older, a lot of other people died. I had a daughter who died of sudden infant death syndrome. She was brought dead to me into my arms. And I say
Mm.
this not because, like, whoever's listening, like, you don't need to have gone through this much tragedy to find enlightenment. All I say it for is because I'm so grateful that God or universe or source thought I was worthy to be gifted these particular tragedies. And I know that everyone listening right now, including you, Faust, has been gifted their tragedies, right? No one's been gifted the same. Like, I know people who've overcome leukemia. I know people who've had family members killed. I know people who, everything, you name it, we've heard it, we know. But we don't all get every tragedy. We all just get a couple. And so it's like our gift, and today, like, my clients, the people I work with one on one, if they come to me with some bullshit, I'm sorry, like, you just can't bring me some bullshit because I'm just gonna be like, look, I held a dead baby in my arms. Like, you can't, you're not gonna, you're not gonna ace me with your bullshit. Like, you want to fucking find enlightenment, you want to work to have a life beyond your wildest dreams. Don't give me your little whiny victim sob story. I can one up you in an instant. When the
Right.
house burnt down, when my dad dropped dead, when I overcame heroin addiction, like, please.
Yeah. I it is a gift. It takes some people many lives, I think, to realize that. But once you do, I imagine it's like riding a bike. I hope. I won't find out until the next one. But your father was, a very rigid man who had very strong beliefs, and then he was diagnosed with something, and he had this remarkable experience happen to him, which I think is an unbelievable paradigm shift for someone to go from what he was to what he is, and I would love for my audience to hear that and just get a sense of that.
Yeah, my dad was a Marxist atheist living in Russia, communist Russia, where you weren't allowed to really have a religion anyway, because it was like some
Hmm.
crazy communist shit. And and so he believed in that there was no God, and he was totally fine with that. Like, so he thought. And then he got tuberculosis, and he was gonna die, and this like guy who was like a student of his, my father was a medical doctor at the time, said, look, I'll take you to the woods, there's a secret guy who can like heal you, but you can't tell anyone because we'll both be killed.
Yeah.
And my dad was like, all right, I'll do fucking anything. So he moved to the woods and he fasted, he learned hatha yoga, he like read the Bhagavad Gita, the Torah, he opened himself up to seeing the world in a new way. He cured himself of tuberculosis. He
Wow.
had a vision in the woods that he was meant to do some kind of healing with his hands and leave the country. And so he came to my mom and said, you want to get the fuck out of Russia? This is the place where they spent their whole life. And he had never thought to leave Russia. He loved Russia. He thought things are hunky dory.
Yeah.
And then she said, yeah. And they immigrated to the States. And like, again, my mom was like the head of our family. She was like very much on the ground and like spoke 5 languages and was, a scientist and was just like super smart. And so when she died 6 years later after they immigrated, it was such a huge shock to his life.
Wow. That's incredible. And so then they moved to, was it Brooklyn or Queens? Brooklyn.
Queens. My dad was
Queens.
kind of
That's right.
like a famous, like amongst the Russian community. So he chose not to live in Brooklyn amongst the Russians
Oh, I
because
see. Okay.
they would like stop him in the street. Russians aren't like Americans. Like when my fans see me, they don't like accost me and they're like, tell me the answer to my personal problems. Russians will do that. They'll like grab you while you're trying to buy your caviar and be like, I have hemorrhoids. Like,
Yeah. What do I do?
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's definitely different from our culture.
Yes.
We don't play like that. But speaking of queens, so you spoke. I've heard you speak about there was a period early on in your spiritual journey where you explored a variety of ancient traditions, particularly Eastern traditions. And you mentioned something incredibly fascinating to me. Like, you found these practices moving and engaging, but you realized that they weren't inherently of you. That those were the words you used. And you said there was something almost inauthentic about, this girl from Queens immersing herself in a tradition that felt so outside of herself. And there's a kind of noble wisdom in tuning and turning to a tradition that's familiar, but also choosing to pursue your path to enlightenment, and make it your own, which is, I think, the only path enlightenment lives on. So it's almost like, your higher power reminded you that, your die had been cast already, and almost like a rubber
Mm.
band that snapped. It's going to come back eventually, right? And I'm just wondering if you think that this is one of the main reasons your work resonates so deeply with such a, 2023 right now, the people who are reading your book and, really finding themselves. It's a Western in general audience, but do you
Yes.
think it comes from, where do you think it comes from?
The fact that it resonates so much.
Yeah. And the fact that you kind of strayed from the typical, the traditional, into something that you made your own.
I think there's a few components. I mean, we're moving into a new era. I think we've all seen the chips falling around us of this masculine energy toppling over and this feminine energy coming in. It hasn't quite figured itself out yet, so it's looking like a bunch of chaos right now, and some of it's pretty ugly, actually, and I don't agree with quite a bit of it. I'm not like a big fan of either side. But what I will say is that for me, I pursued enlightenment. I read every single book that one should read, does read: Rumi, Bhagavad Gita, Torah, Quran, the Sufi mysticism, Rosicrucian Christian. Like, I read everything. And the one thing that I found kept coming to me in those studies, and also in the study of the studies, which means I took the work, I implemented all the practices into my own life, because that is actually how spiritual work is found. It's through doing the thing. It's not like reading a book. You can't read
Right.
it. You got to go do the stuff. So I did the stuff, and then as the books suggested, I found enlightenment. They said you'll find enlightenment, and once you find enlightenment, this is the part where I think it gets a little tricky. The books tell you that once you find enlightenment, you're just better than you've ever been before. You're free from flaws. You're not attached to pain. You're not a nationalist. You have no feelings towards you. Like, I mean,
Right.
the ideas behind it make no sense. The truth is, though, I did find enlightenment, and it is true. When you're in a state of enlightenment, you cannot have a preference to one thing over another. Like, if I was like in a room during a state of enlightenment, which could last a day or a week, and I saw my family versus some family I've never seen before, in a state of enlightenment, I would be like, oh, all people are equal. We're all one. Everyone is equal. But if I return out of enlightenment into the three other states, which I state in my interpretation of enlightenment, which has
Hmm.
4 stages, if you're in any of the other 3 stages, you definitely don't feel that way. You're like, no, my family is more important than your family. My family is the most important family in the world, and I will do whatever I have to do to protect them. So, I mean, I think, again, like, we've been fed this very masculine idea that enlightenment is forever. So just a couple weeks ago, I was in a state of enlightenment. It lasted about a week. During the time while I was in that state, first of all, I don't know if the listeners know, but I'm completely sober. So I wasn't on
Hmm.
microdosing. I wasn't on ayahuasca. I hadn't just come off some kind of retreat. This just happens to me.
Hmm.
And it happened to me, and it lasted a week. And during that time, I didn't know how long it would last. I thought, well, maybe it could last a week, it could last a couple of days, but I wasn't attached to how long it lasted. I just knew it will pass. And there was this moment right in the middle of all that where I had this thought, and I was like, this is the thing that I was always taught would last forever
Hmm.
in the books. That once you get it, you're like Jesus, and then you're like on a cross, but you're like still fucking enlightened, even though
Right.
they're healing you. And so, and I was like, oh, one day I'll be like that. I'll be better than everyone. I'll be like Jesus, whatever the story is. I'll be
Right.
like Buddha. And what I felt was so cool. I was like in this week and I was like, oh my God, it's so relieving to know that this will pass. And I don't have to be condemning of myself or beat the shit out of myself or berate myself for not being a high enough being of spiritual etiquette, that this will pass through me. And you know what came right after, weirdly, right after the enlightenment passed, I moved into something, what I call creative flow, which means that out of nowhere, now I wasn't feeling enlightened at all. Normal, I was back to normal. But now I was getting radio signals of new songs to write.
Hmm.
You just can't do everything at the same fucking time. Like you gotta move through a passage of different experiences so that you can get shit done.
Agreed. And I think this is one of the things I really love about your book is how articulate you are about this part of the spiritual path, because people imagine this ever elusive enlightenment state, and because it's experienced so rarely and in such a profound way by, I think these days, by very few people. And then, they always say, if you want to know if you're enlightened or not, just go spend some time with your family. Then they go home and, they're with their family, and all of a sudden they're a reaction. And so they're like, it's like, oh, I still have a lot of work to do. Well, maybe you do, but maybe you don't, because you're a human being living on this planet, and if you were in a permanent sense of enlightenment, what would there be left to do for you? What would you need to do? I mean, there's always something more, and we're here in relationship to that, whatever it is, to them, to it. That's, I believe that's part of our experience here. And so if you're going to be in relationship with something, that is not, I don't think that matches what we understand about enlightenment, because that is the detachment, of everything almost. So I love the way that you write about this, and put this in such simple terms for people who are always chasing this ever elusive state, right? I mean, I don't think that we're meant. I mean, maybe some people are. I shouldn't say that. I don't know, but I think even the Buddha walked around, and maybe when he stubbed his toe, he wasn't. Maybe he said shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, Jesus definitely got mad at that one market. I remember that. I mean, I don't remember. I remember reading about it, but he didn't seem very blissed out and happy about that, if you recall.
Yeah. No, he said, God, why have you forsaken me, when he was on the cross?
That's
So
right.
anyone
And
who's saying that obviously is having a moment of doubt, which I would if I was being hung on a fucking torture
right.
device. I'm certain would have many moments of doubt, if not all. That was the other thing that I had to let go of. My father had said, your only purpose in life is to die a conscious death. And so, like, my whole life was like this pins and needles of like, what if I die like C3PO, like, oh no. And then like the ship goes down. Like
Yeah.
my vision was like, I have to be like Han Solo. I have to be this brave, cocky warrior.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had to let that go. I just had to be like, listen, you know what? If I fucking die like C3PO, cool.
Oh God, where are my legs?
Yeah.
Why are they on backwards? No. Your dad sounds so fucking cool. He just sounds like so amazing. I've, my kids they're 9 and 12, but one of the things I've wanted to say to them, or maybe I will say to them one day, maybe I won't, now that you said that, but is, your only purpose here is to die a conscious death, is to become as conscious as you can. I'm always
Mm.
harping on them, especially the 12-year-old. 9-year-old, not so much patience for this kind of stuff yet. But
Sure.
you've described the fourth way, as a philosophical system used to navigate our world as a consequence of our humanity. But can you explain a little bit more about, to me, like the origins of it, how it's practiced, and where you got 44 laws from?
Yeah, so my work is derived from the teachings of Gurdjieff and his student Uspensky. I've also studied other students of fourth way work, such as Maurice Nichol and Rodney Cullen. And I've been part of secret fourth way schools and started my own secret fourth way school a long time ago. Um, for me, fourth way work is like a live meditation, so that it's a meditation that you do while you're speaking, while you're thinking, while you're reading, while you're doing activities. So it's not a thing where you sit in a temple not doing anything. It's actually an active meditation. And fourth way means learning to find enlightenment in the real world, in like while you have a family, while you're buying real estate, while you're like in circumstances and that are conducive not to that. I think that a lot of people get lost in things like real estate and family and husbands and wives and dinner parties. You can get really seduced into thinking this is real. My wife is real, my life is real, my money, my bank account's real, these kids, all of this is real. And the truth is that this isn't real. It's just not real in the way that we believe it to be. Time isn't real in the way that we believe it to be. This planet isn't real in the way that we believe it to be. I'm not saying that if I like pulled out like a hatchet and cut your arm off, you wouldn't fucking scream and bleed. That
Right.
is real. And that's the thing too, is that wisdom comes in contradiction. Like the other day, there's a war going on, and there was talk of like, well, would you invest stock options in machine guns now, because obviously they're going to go up in stock. And I just took, I like to do thought experiments as a spiritual teacher. So I just took that into my mind and thought to myself, like, would I feel comfortable investing in stock options for mass weapons of destruction during a time of war? Because obviously that will be a profitable thing to
Yeah.
do. And as I meditated on it, I mean, it was only like a 30-second meditation, but I came to the conclusion that I, in fact, can't do that,
Right.
because whatever money I made from that, I could not live in a house built on the blood and
Yeah.
tears and hurt of other human beings. It just didn't make sense to me. But that's the thing, is like, we have to remember that it is real and it's not real. It's both. Right?
Yes.
So like, yes, it's not real, and like all of this is a matrix and blah. And yeah, and I'm not going to invest in stock options for machine guns either. Like, you have to make choices.
Yes. Yes, you do have to make choices, or they'll be made for you. I was just one of my favorite things to try to instill in people and get them to understand is that if you're not consciously creating an intention and then going about your life with actions that support that intention, leading from the heart, then you're more likely to get caught up in someone else's either conscious or unconscious intentions.
Mhm.
And that's how, quote, accidents happen. I think sometimes, not that accidents are always bad, sometimes they can be wonderful. But it's so important, I think. Speaking of the fourth way, by the way, guys, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so, and hit the alert notifications. But you have to check out Biet's book, because I talk to so many people who are trying to find a practice. They're trying to find something that works for them, and your book, not only lays out how to understand what you're doing, but it lays out practices for people. And I feel like people are always looking for a way to get started, and your book is literally that way, no pun intended.
Thanks.
And so, speaking of the fourth way, and from reading it, this is the sense I get from it. The practice allows us to live fully in this world, but my question, Biet, is like, what is outside of this world? What's beyond the sensory limitations of our human bodies? And when can we get a taste of it? Right? I know through meditation, I know through breath work. Certainly, I think you know that as well.
Yeah.
And then there's experiences that we have in these bodies, like sex, like eating a delicious meal, right? And somehow these things are all related, and I know that because there are certain things that happen in my body when I'm involved in all of those things. Like, I have these commonalities that happen to me biologically. Some of them are like really like peculiar.
What do
um,
you mean?
well, I mean, like if if I'm meditating, if I'm doing breath work,
Yeah.
oftentimes when I'm having sex, like my like it's almost like someone is cooking a steak and I'm starving. Like my I don't know, I guess salivatory glands, are like kicked in, like almost like someone's cooking the most delicious meal, But it happens to me when I'm meditating, happens during sex, and it happens during breath work. And I'm
Mm,
like, that is so strange that goes on with me. I don't know. And so, like, some part of my brain is very much engaged in all three of those things. And also, of course, sometimes if I'm really hungry and someone's cooking, I'm like, mm. Um, but those things are all related. So I guess my question is like, um, the relationship that we have with these things, and what you've come to learn about breath work and how it complements meditation. I would love for you to speak about that, because I know that much of my audience is on a healing journey, and I know the power of breath work to heal. Not just metaphorically or even metaphysically, but scientifically and biologically. There's a lot coming out that shows unequivocally how healing breath work can be for
yeah.
people who have trauma trapped in the body. And so you have this amazing technique and practice, and it complements meditation perfectly. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about how you came into that and what you've learned since doing it.
Yeah. So I founded a breathwork system, as you experienced at Russell Brand's festival. I founded a somatic practice, which I don't know if I did that at that, like on the large stage there, but I have done it on many large stages before. It's just like a 20-minute practice that brings you back into your body. And to me, that trifecta of meditation, my breath work, my signature breath work, and my signature somatic practice has released me from this feeling and brought me into a new definition of enlightenment. I would say that without those elements, one will, I mean, there's different paths in life. This is what worked for me. And I do think that, like, there's a frequency to people, like in the same way that some of us love the Beatles, or some of us love the Rolling Stones, or like, it's just like music. And when someone sees me or they hear me, they're either going to be very attracted to what they see and want to get more inside the work that I'm teaching. Yay, Faust. Or they're gonna be like, this is bitch is not for me.
Right.
I know I feel that way too. There's people who teach spirituality and they're like covered in tribal tattoos and they're crawling around the floor and like licking things, and I'm just like, I love you. I love that. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to go to the retreat. I'm not going to, it's just not for me. I remember when I was studying my sensuality, there was many teachers who taught it, and they wore like tassels on their boobs and wore feather boas and like stiletto boots. And I was like, do I really have to do all that to get better at sex? Because if I do, like, I
Yeah.
don't think it's going to work for me. And yeah, I'm a flavor, and I think that
Yeah.
people resonate. Like, they hear me and they're like, I want to do that bitch's breath work because
Right.
she's funny and dark and she tells it like it is. And I want to, and that's why people work with me privately. And that's why people come to my big events, because they're like, this bitch is real for me,
Right.
and also like, and there's still tall white dudes telling you that enlightenment is forever. So, like, if you want to find someone who's going to tell you
There's
that
a lot of them.
enlightenment is
Yeah.
forever and you're going to be better than everyone and you'll be a tall white man once you get there, go follow that guy. I'm not that person. I'm not going to be that person.
Right. No, thank God you're not. Would be talking to you if you were. The world has enough tall white men telling people they're going to be enlightened forever if they just pay a certain fee and listen to them. We don't need any more of those. Anyway.
Wait, that'd be a good Instagram post. The world has enough tall white men telling them they'll be enlightened forever if they just buy their $100 course.
Right. I'm gonna turn it into a short. um, one thing I love about your book is that you don't have to kind of abandon or reject any part of yourself. And you were just speaking about this, and I think this is part of the reason why I was so also drawn to your work. It's Zen and it's stoic, but at the same time, you have permission to be human. You don't have to you don't have to continue to chastise yourself about not being the Buddha, or this idea of enlightenment, which I don't think is very realistic. And you know, as fallible humans, how do we know when we've kind of veered too far in either direction? We're trying to be too self-control or too self-indulgent. A lot of people struggle with this. Other people not so much. But I, as someone who has, lived the life of a rock star very much as you have, how do you find that balance?
It's really important that you notice when your ego is rebuilding itself. Your ego is a giant destructive beast that wants you dead. It wants you miserable. It wants you making all the worst decisions. It wants you thinking you're a worthless piece of shit. It wants you feeling like you're fat. It wants you separated from all your friends, separated from your ideals, from your faith. And it will win if it's left unchecked. So for me, the main practice is release from the bondage of self, like the prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi, which I do every day. Not that it works. Prayer only, for anyone who's watching, like, I pray every day. I pray all through the day. I don't just pray in the morning. I pray all fucking day. I use my moods and my flaws as a way to remind me that it's time to pray yet again, to pause. And the reason I do this is just for the purpose of being mindful of how big is my ego now? How big is my
Mm,
ego? How amazing do I think I am? What a worthless piece of shit I think I am. That's how you know you're trapped inside the bullshit. Is you're either thinking you're better than everyone and you're amazing, you're untouchable, look how what I've done, or you're like, wow, I'm such a loser. I'm living in my mom's
mm.
basement. I've never really blah 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 blah, right? So it's kind of like it's gonna fucking beat you up or it's gonna rise you down. You want to be neutral. You want to be in a place of like, I'm not listening to you. I'm here with a very clear aim.
It's beautifully put. Right, standing in the middle. That's where I try to live as well. Um, and I think that's the only place to come to if you're going to attempt to be in this world and realize a spiritual life. Because I think whether you realize it or not, you're living one. But a lot of people aren't convinced of that just yet. They're waiting for evidence, they're waiting for proof. God bless them.
Good
Anyway,
luck. Good luck.
I'm right, exactly. They're gonna be waiting and waiting. I'm a longtime student of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he's who I learned to meditate from. Very gifted, like yourself, in creating and working with music to get people into an incredible state. And in your book, you write about something that he also teaches, and how it's like how to embody your future and then manifest it, but also how to become the conscious observer of your life. And one of the things that I love that you articulate so well in your book is about divided attention, one of your first steps. And that is I love the way you articulate it. I was wondering if you could share it, because I think it would be so helpful for people to hear, just a way for them to begin becoming more conscious.
Yeah, divided attention is a fourth way tool of meditation. And it states you can meditate anywhere, anytime, doing anything. So you can meditate while you're making eggs. You can meditate while you're doing a podcast. You can meditate while you're having sex. You can meditate while you're on a stage speaking to people. You can meditate in a boardroom when you're an employee or you're the one running the group.
Mm-hmm.
The way that it works is you just divide your attention. You have one attention on the fascination in front of you. So if you're eating a peach, you have one attention on this peach. And the thing that people I think often misunderstand about meditation, you'll meet people who are really seeking, and they often have this very like glazed look over in their eye, and they're like, the peach, like, and it's just, it feels oppressive, and you're like, okay, I get it, you love
Yeah,
the beach, you know
take it
what I mean,
easy.
but it's kind of like it's 50% of what makes someone spiritual was missing from that action. To have fascinated attention of a peach is only 50% of enlightenment. Well, it's first of all, enlightenment is also like a third force that we have no control over. But the two forces we do have control over are the fascinated attention of the peach, but then you need a second attention. And that second attention, you float above yourself and you try to see, what do I look like while I hold this peach? What does my face look like as it engages with this peach?
Hmm.
How do I feel? What are the senses? What am I experiencing? And then you have this kind of whoa. Like if you've ever seen, there's a film called The Color of Pomegranate. It was a film made in like, I think the early 80s. It's like some avant-garde Armenian film,
Hmm.
maybe. I don't, sorry, don't quote me. If it's not Armenian, I apologize to all the Armenians. Like it's something, Georgian, Armenian, it's something from that region. And it's a beautiful film, but and I'm not, like, for me, all divided attention that I learned originally was from studying avant-garde cinema. I interned with Jonas Mekas, who is, by my account, one of the fathers of avant-garde cinema. He started Anthology Film Archives in New York. And watching 5-hour films about absolutely fucking nothing is how I learned to do
Wow.
divided attention. Eventually,
How ironic. Yeah.
yeah, but that's our life, is about absolutely nothing. Like Jonas Mekas made a film, it's a 5, maybe 7-hour film called As I Moved Ahead, I Saw Brief Glimpses of Beauty. I literally sat in the theater for 3 hours at a time to watch that movie. It's like shots of his daughter playing violin by the Christmas tree and then poetry. And then, like, it's nothing. That's what our life is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you float above yourself, you see yourself from above. And divided attention is a tool, and then what is meant to come is the ambrosia of self-remembering. Will we self-remember every time we try divided attention? No, we will not. That is not the point. The point is that we made the effort. And you know what's even more fun? Divided attention is just as useful if you just notice that you fucked up and missed the opportunity to do it. Like if you are in a car and you're driving and then someone cuts you off and you're like, fuck you. And then you don't float above yourself to see yourself saying fuck you, but just about 5 minutes later you're on the road and you're like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
I was kind of a dick to that person and like really fucking irate myself. Even if you missed it but you catch it 5 minutes later, it's already just as useful,
Hmm.
because divided attention allows you to see who you actually are.
Hmm.
You're an upset, disgruntled, resentful, annoyed resentment machine. You're a human being. And if you can see that and like
Right.
really see the beast, you are on your fucking way.
It, people go to great lengths to experience this. You know, I remember, I mean, I attended a few plant ceremonies, but I remember how one started one night, and it was just this incessant replay of me playing catch with my youngest son, one of his first times playing catch, and and how impatient I was with him as he tried to learn how to do this,
Wow.
and I just kept the medicine kept showing me and showing me and showing me, you know, and it was breaking my heart to see, but I could see myself, and I
Wow.
thought to myself, I will never go so unconscious that I turn into, you know, a version of my father.
Mhm.
um, but it was heartbreaking to see. But you know, we go. It took. I went. I was on a journey and I did a plant ceremony, and that's what I was shown. So what you're teaching is profound, and you know it comes in all kinds of forms. But since then, you know, I try to be very conscious of myself, especially in those moments. So it was a learning lesson, and that's what I think your techniques provide people. It's a constant way to, if you can remember, to be conscious of yourself and divide your attention in order to see yourself in a situation. Because I always tell people, you know, you're not in traffic, you are traffic. Okay, only a human being could possibly, you know, get so confused that they think that they're stuck in traffic when they are literally the traffic. You know what I'm saying? It's
Mm,
crazy. It's nuts.
it's their fault.
Yeah, yeah. It's all these people where there's 100 cars. You're number 77 in this line of cars, and you are
So
raving and raging at them, right?
I'm
Because
better.
it's nuts, man. I love being human. It's crazy. So meditating with you at the festival was was so cool at Russell Brand's Community Festival. It was a beautiful experience. So tell me what that's like from your perspective. To take thousands of people to this elevated level of consciousness, even though it may be brief. Um, you know, that's got to be kind of. I mean, I know you had a lot of dreams and aspirations when you were younger of becoming, this rock star and playing in front of these huge audiences. But I mean, I'm just imagining what that must be like for you up there. And I mean, how does that feel? Must be pretty incredible watching that shift happen in the audience.
It is. It's incredible, but it's part of the dance, and I want to go back to me having no money, not knowing how I was going to make it as an artist, having lost my whole family, except for my brother, having lost them to a very early death, including my daughter, overcoming heroin addiction and being sober, newly sober and lost, and praying on my knees, saying, Universe, Source, I'm not religious, please show me what you want me to do. Show me what you want me to do. And as I was doing that, I was also visioning. I was journaling every day of my vision. And I was picturing myself in log cabins recording records with phenomenal musicians. And I was envisioning myself on large stages, guiding and performing. I didn't know guiding. I didn't know that I was going to be a spiritual teacher, but I saw myself on large stages. I saw my bank account growing. I saw myself gaining wealth. And for me, that's choice. Wealth is choice. It's choice of where will I live? What will I wear? Where will I summer? Like, these are things you can't buy without money. Like, there's actual ways in which things are real. For anyone who's listening, who's in the situation I was in, which is I had not a penny to my name. I didn't know what I was going to do for a living. I didn't know who I was. I just knew these certain elements. I knew that if I prayed and meditated every day and didn't drink, which is important for me personally, and I believe sobriety, like, it's not for everyone, but for me, sobriety, it's like an atomic bomb,
Hmm.
because I'm a drunk, drug addict, lunatic. And so for me to not drink, it's kind of like that's a phenomenon. So if you're a sex addict, if you're a gambling addict, if you're a relationship addict, if you're an alcohol or drug addict, if you're a workaholic, whoever the fuck you are, if you stop doing that thing, that one thing, that is the atomic bomb that provides this life. So to me, it took years of me manifesting and saying, I know who I am, praying, getting a vision that I was meant to be a spiritual teacher, fucking pursuing it like my life depended on it. Everything, websites, appearances, talking to art galleries and saying, can I put together a meditation in your space? 4 people coming, 12 people coming, 200 people coming, thousands of people coming. By the time it was thousands of people think it's like an overnight thing. You're like, oh yeah. No, by the time it's thousands of people, you're like, so chill,
Yeah.
because you've been manifesting for years and you've been receiving messages for years. And if you're lucky like me, you're calm. And you're on the stage and you're like, you know what? I'm high as fuck on breathwork that I invented.
Hmm.
And I'm fucking, I'm just fucking chilling. I'm having the best time of my life. Would I be chilling if someone came and bombed everyone or kidnapped us?
Right.
No.
No.
Like, that's not, I think that's the thing that people don't understand. It's like, okay, enlightenment to what end? You know what I mean? Like, no one's enlightened while they're being kidnapped by
No.
terrorists.
No. There's biological programs involved that, as long as you're human, I mean, you know, I guess nothing is out of the realm of possibility. But we have these programs to keep us alive, and sometimes they're involuntary. If you don't
It's,
believe that, just stand still and tell someone to throw someone at your head and see what you do. You're not going to have to think about moving. The body's going to be like, I got this, you idiot, and it's going to get you out of the way.
yeah,
And your heart's going to race and your adrenal glands are going to release all kinds of stuff that you can use to continue to get out of the way. That's
yeah.
the body for you. And it's a great thing, but it's amazing that people have this notion, this kind of false illusion of enlightenment to me,
Mhm.
because that couldn't be what it is. Um, I speaking of some of these nefarious things that may happen to us as humans, I talk about a lot of stuff on my podcast that some people would consider uncomfortable.
Mm,
Some of the systems in place that work against peace and harmony and abundance and instill this scarcity mindset, which I don't have, I don't hate anything or anyone, but, I do get frustrated and I have to kind of pull myself out of the weeds when I think about what has been done to the mindset of the people of this planet and the way that they've been, misinformed about reality
mm.
and their powers as creative individuations of God, and what we could be experiencing compared to what we are, particularly right now, is it's a shame. But I think that, like, as many people have, we are going to turn this dark into a beautiful light. It's just going to take some time. But you know, that being said, when I can talk to someone like you and focus on practical ideas that people can incorporate into their lives in the face of all this that we're looking at. I mean, because to turn on the news right now, particularly, it's like a nightmare. It's like a bad movie, and it just seems to continue to escalate. And um, I think that these techniques that you are teaching give people a greater opportunity to see through the illusion, to see through the misdirection of fear and horror and scarcity. And I just I love you for that, and I wanted to say that and share that with you. And I'm wondering if you had to pick one of the most crucial lessons from your book that you could share with me and my listeners, I'm wondering which one you would pick.
I think that the most important thing, as you're even speaking, and from the book, is about that it's your fate that's going to be, it's your friction, right? It's not, yes, we can turn on the news, and yes, today it happens to be like a horror movie, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure if you tune into the news any day, it's
That's
like a
true.
horror movie. Like, literally, with somewhere, there's literally 4 genocides happening right as we speak. But, we're all focusing on one. Whatever the point is there's 4. So that's the main thing to remember, is that while it may upset some people on the internet this week, the truth is that those people who are upset on the internet are really mostly upset about their own
Yeah.
lives. And we are all only ever really upset by our own lives. So look to your own life. Look to the friction that you've been given. In my life, I was given the death of my daughter, the death of my mother, poverty, roaches, mice, a shitty, like, public school education while I was at home reading fucking, Sigmund Freud at the age of 9. That juxtaposition, like crime in the streets, being like held up at gunpoint, being almost raped by the time I was 12. I was given that. I was given the death of my father, the death of my best friend. I was given my house burning down. I was given that friction. And that was great because they were like, okay, wake up. But then there's other friction. Like, just for anyone listening who's like, got it like that. You've got money, you've got a beautiful family. So many of my clients have all that stuff. That's not the point. The point is that, like, even after you have all that stuff, you're still getting friction. What is your friction, and what are you going to do with it? Like, do you want to become an alchemist who transforms lead into gold? Because that is all we can do here. We can only awaken. And you said, like, I love this idea that there's going to be a golden age when everyone finally gets it all at the same time. Great. But essentially, like, by the law of enlightenment, that cannot last forever anyway, right? So,
Yeah.
like, the point isn't that we find a golden age or that we all, like, have an orgasm at the same time in the trees. The point is that, can we alchemize and re-alchemize the shithole hellscape that this planet is, and not just on a global level, because it's fucked on a global level, but also on our internal frictions that have been gifted to us. And that is what my work is all about, and that is what the book is all about. It's about taking your friction and making it your bitch, and then juicing it and drinking it like a fucking smoothie,
Hmm.
and going out like it's Saturday Night Fever.
I love that. People ask me all the time. They're like, "What are we supposed to do? What can we do?" And I tell them, what can you do but work on you? You can't. What are you going to do? Are you going to make a sign and go hang out outside of like CNN or Fox News? What can you do but work on you? If everyone decided just to work on them, the world would change overnight. If
Ha!
everyone took one night, I mean, in my experience,
Yeah.
that's the only kind of work that's left for people to do. If they only realized the power there was in doing it, um, and how it affects everyone. I mean, anyone who's done this work knows it doesn't stop with you. The law of resonance, it literally affects everything around you, from your pets to your kids to your significant other or others. It's all it's all this incredible profound effect. I've experienced it. And so the benefits don't stop at you, is what I guess I'm trying to say to everyone who's listening. It's worth doing. It's painful, of course. That's what keeps people from doing it. Yet it can be
I
painful.
take that pain. I'll take it over what pain I was in before,
Yeah.
because
And
I
on the
love my pain today. And
and
that's
on the
that's a chapter in my book too. Conscious suffering, right? It's kind of like, which kind of suffering do you want?
exactly. And on the other side of it is joy. You know. And then maybe it's back to pain, but certainly I think it enhances the joy. I mean,
It's
if you've
more
ever
joy. Yeah, it's more joy.
totally, it's like taking an ice bath and then taking a hot shower. How good does that hot shower feel after that ice bath? I mean, not
Mm.
that you should probably do one after the other, but you know what I'm saying. It's like they complement each other. Anyway, yeah, Biet, I highly recommend Biet's book. And so tell me, Biet, what is your experience with our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters? Do you have any? And if not, of course, it doesn't matter one lick, but I'm
The
just
ones
wondering.
from other
Go-
planets,
yeah. Yeah, this is called Far Out with Faust, Biet. Come on, you got to come you got to come
they
out on
live
me.
amongst us. I have no idea who's who. There's a movie from the '80s called "They Live," and it's kind of like, I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. I look around me. What I can feel is that I am resonant to frequencies. In the same way, though, like there's a lot of aliens are very, very bad.
Mm,
There's going to be some that are fucking awesome. And it's kind of like that with every religion of the world, every nation of the world. Like most Americans
yeah.
are morons, but there's some of us that are great. Like most,
Yeah.
most everybody is a moron, horrible person, except for this little, right? This nugget. And so same with aliens. I don't fucking know who the aliens are. I haven't gotten those glasses yet from the
Yeah,
movie.
you need those glasses from that movie. What
I
was
need
that
the
movie?
glasses. But what I can tell you is that if I've met any aliens, many of them were assholes, but some of them were fucking.
Understood. There's a lot of people who believe there are many of them walking amongst us.
Well, and then one time I remember there was this psychic shaman guy who came. I was doing this like weekend thing where like everyone came together to like do spiritual work. And I got up on the stage where like, they come and like evaluate you or whatever.
Oh
And
yeah.
the psychic guy came up and he was like, "Yo, thank you, Biet. Thank you for coming and visiting our planet." And I was like, I felt like I was seen for the first time, like
You're like,
maybe I'm the alien.
where the fuck am I again? Yeah, that must have been trippy as hell. Yeah.
I was like, oh, it all makes sense now. I'm just visiting from another
Yeah.
planet. I was wondering why I don't fucking fit in here.
Yeah. There's so much truth to that statement, I think, for a lot of people. I think personally, the reason why we can't tell the difference is because we're mostly them as well. I mean, I don't understand how people think the fuck we got here. I don't, I mean, I know people think it was an accident, but there's no accidents. And even after they said, well, they've done the math and they realized that the odds of us being an accident are virtually impossible. I was like, no shit.
Wow.
Did you need them to do the math on that to figure that out? I
Apparently
mean,
they did. They needed math.
apparently they did, but Biet, I know we don't have much time today, but maybe we can speak again sometime in the future because, I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and one thing I really wanted to let you do was talk as much as I could, I'm grateful for an hour, and I'm so grateful for your time, and it was so great to meet you, and I'm going to see you again in just a few weeks at Arcadia.
Oh, yay! Yay!
Yeah, so I'm
Amazing.
very
I can't wait
excited.
to hug you and hang out.
I know it's going to be great. I can't wait to do your breath work and see you
Yay!
again. It's very
Yay!
cool.
So
But
excited.
I'll keep you posted on when we're gonna premiere this episode, and we'll
Amazing.
probably cut some clips for social media and all that jazz, and we'll be in touch. But I'll let you go so you can get ready for your next client. But thank you so much for your time, Biet. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Faust. So good to be together.
You too. I'll see you soon, and I'll talk to you sooner.
Yay.
Thank you so much, Biet. You take care. Bye.